welcome to Flutterbug Auto. Today I'm talking about Car Quest, a game I can describe in no other way than just extremely weird. Usually on this channel I talk about racing games, but my real focus is just on car games, though sometimes it's carts or motorcycles, of course. And this game is, well, it's got a car. You play as a car. I don't want to say you drive a car because, as far as I understand, you are the car. I also kind of want to call it a platformer, but it's not a platformer in the typical sense where you're running and jumping around because you're a car. But there are platforms and you do go over jumps and stuff, so platformer. A car platformer. And that's not really the weird part about this game, honestly. Like, as you play this game, you'll quickly come to realize that this car has no business being here at all. It's like completely inexplicable that this is a car game at all. And like, it's not just any car either. It's this crazy little hot rod with funny chibi proportions and a huge engine sticking out of the front and everything. And you're just in this largely simple, abstract, ambient environment. It's just frankly insane. And honestly, the color and lighting choices are really good. This game has incredible vibes. It's extremely chill and ambient, outside of the main hub world. I particularly liked the vibes of this sandy desert level. Just beautiful color choices and the gradient coming up from the bottom of the sky into the starry night. Just perfect. It feels so dreamlike a sandy little dreamscape. A lot of the game ends up feeling like a plasticky toy world. A plasticky, dreamlike toy world, which is a vibe I really like from time to time. Personally, I sometimes have dreams that take place in a world that looks like this. Like an amazing digital circus type of environment. But yeah, anyway, speaking of level design, this is where you really start to feel what an odd choice it is to have a car as the playable character. Because almost nothing feels made for it. The car itself handles really well. Unlike in a racing game, I think it'd feel really good, honestly. It's got an interesting drift boost mechanic where you can charge it with really just any amount of steering. So you can kind of just wiggle in a straight line and build up a boost at the cost of the handling becoming a bit more slippery while the drift is happening. But if you keep it under control, you can just boost on a straightaway and it's actually pretty satisfying. However, there's almost nowhere in the game where any of this actually comes in handy. Most of the time, you're never even going to want to use the drift because just about everything is tailored to slow, careful driving because you're in these really tight, narrow spaces with sharp corners and straight walls, or narrow pathways you're trying not to fall off of. When you get a bit further into the game, it starts giving you some high-speed sections and jumps to pull off, but they are very few and far between. I tried, and I mean I really tried, to find places where I could use the drift boost to pull off some kind of sick trick and get to somewhere early, but I wasn't really able to pull anything off. The levels are super locked down and meant to be figured out in one way only. Like, the developers clearly knew the limits of the car's movements and built the stages around that. If you've got more patience than me, there's probably some places you could pull something off, but I certainly didn't have the patience to keep trying, unfortunately. So yeah, it feels like a bit of a missed opportunity, but the way it is makes it feel a bit like a Sonic game without the Sonic level design. There's nothing here to make use of the fact that you're playing as a car. Sonic doesn't feel as good when he's just moving around on plain boxes and ramps and no smooth slopes and loop-de-loops, you know? The closest thing in the game to making interesting use of the movement was this one level that required some wall riding, but it was still kind of clunky and clear that the game wasn't quite made for it. That said, on the other hand though, would I be as intrigued by this game if the level design made perfect sense? Would I still think it was the weirdest car game that I've ever played? Probably not nearly as much, honestly. It's the bizarre little incongruence that really makes it feel truly odd. There's also the gameplay itself though, and the presentation on top of it that really propels this game into being just kind of a surreal masterpiece though. This is essentially an exploration-based puzzle game, with the main puzzle being just drive around and look for artifacts, which act as keys that unlock new areas of the world. Lather, rinse, and repeat. I do like that the artifacts tend to match the shape of the thing that they're going to unlock. That was kind of fun and kind of made it feel more satisfying, actually. You also don't ever want to skip out on collecting the batteries you find scattered around, because you basically always need more of them to get into new levels. There's also occasionally the odd puzzle you'll have to solve, the most involved of which being this colored light puzzle, where you have to look at the color of books on a shelf and remember the color of the missing book in the middle that was mentioned earlier on. I felt kind of clever for figuring that one out and remembering the missing book, but for the most part the puzzle is just figuring out the sequence of events that'll lead you to each artifact. All of this said, I think the game would still end up coming off as more boring than interesting and strange if it weren't for the last factor, which is this guy, Lord Blackstar, who shows up and talks to you throughout literally the entire goddamn game. Every single little thing that happens, he has something to say about it. And every single line is voice acted. Like, it's just kind of downright impressive, the sheer number of voice acted dialogue lines that this game has.
Wow, we're really bridging gaps today. Ah, what a relief. That's cleared that blockage. My word, you can see for a long way from this wall. It's a long sea wall. Get it? Sea wall? Sea wall? Never mind.
And it's not bad voice acting either. He actually sounds really good. If it weren't for him adding context to the world and adding his personality to everything, I think the game would just feel really empty and lifeless. You'd just be looking at some pretty nondescript shapes and structures throughout the whole game. But because of him, instead you'll look at this stuff and feel like it's part of a world. You're not just looking at a random collection of polygons. You're looking at some little courtyard that he used to like to sit and relax in. Things like that.
Ah, yes, the power room. I used to come here for a quiet place to read. I would lose myself in the pages of my history book for hours at a time.
And the farther into the game you get, the more of a complete picture of the world you get as well. It was actually a lot of fun, and it kept me going throughout the whole game. I was invested, honestly. This otherwise strange, atmospheric and simplistic world instead managed to feel kind of cozy and nice to be in. It gave the whole game a kind of a light-hearted and earnest vibe. There were still a few places that felt like a slog though. I think the worst offender being this maze level. I actually started playing this game a few years ago at the recommendation of a friend, and that playthrough ended at the maze. It's just kind of painfully long and boring, and you end up having to do so many repeat laps around the maze. It's not fun. I'm sorry. There's also the Pirate Island level, and it's got some fun things going on, like night and day versions of the level, where things are slightly different, so you have to periodically switch between them to continue. But it's just way too big and long for what it is, especially because if you get into the water, there's only one side of the island where you can get back onto it, and I had to drive all the way around it so many times. It was infuriating. Also, yeah, that's right, your car can just drive on the water. There's a few sections like that where the game dips into just being tedious, and those are the hardest parts to power through. I think my only other real level complaints was on this one with the sheep, where you have to line them up and drive across them to reach an artifact, and it was really just janky. The sheep don't lock into place or anything, so just going for it, you're likely going to just push them around obnoxiously. And instead, I had to awkwardly go over the ledge like this to make it work. It was an interesting concept, but just executed poorly, I think. I also didn't quite like the ice level that much, just for aesthetic reasons though. I felt like it's just kind of too monochrome. So much of the game does such a great job with color that this one just really stood out to me for being too plain. And yeah, honestly, I really do think that the game would end up feeling repetitive and overly simple overall, were it not for Lord Blackstar. He really steals the show in my opinion, and just feels the game with such a whimsical personality. I was hooked on the story entirely because of him. The ending does kind of fall a little flat for me, though it is one of the only places where the game actually rewards you for going fast. But I did like the utterly unhinged detail of the game explaining your origin as just being the sign on a car repair place in the real world. And the game reveals that detail extremely early on and then goes nowhere with it as well. And that is exactly the right level of absurdity for this game to have. And there's even a post-game. There's extra collectibles to find after you finish the game. And I won't spoil the true ending in case you want to play this yourself. But one thing I will spoil is that after you properly finish the game, it rewards you by deleting your save file. Incredible. Again, I'd expect nothing less from Car Quest. But yeah, there's just a lot more game here than you'd expect. And it was honestly a lot of fun and pretty satisfying. Watching the main hub world open up over time, I was really surprisingly sucked in. I think it really is just a shame that there's not more room to play around with the fact that you're driving a car and you have a boost mechanic, but that said, I don't think it actually needed a lot in that aspect. Just maybe a little bit more of something could have improved it, you know? I wouldn't want to remove the inexplicable feeling of the game after all. So yeah, if you'd like to play a really chill ambient game with a silly goofy story and concept, then I can definitely recommend checking this out. Just keep in mind that sometimes it's a bit of a slog and it's overall slow-paced despite being a car game. But if you can stick it out, it's a pretty fun time. Oh, and if you do check it out, I recommend going for the Steam version. This game was originally a Switch exclusive, and that's where I played it, but I just discovered that it actually has a Steam version as well that released in 2022 that adds some minor new things, like different cars to unlock that have some different abilities. So I would imagine that adds some to the experience. And also it seems like nobody is playing this game. It only has 7 reviews on Steam. So if this seemed at all interesting to you, definitely go check it out on Steam and maybe leave a review for them. And with that, I hope you'll be looking forward to more car and racing game content I've got coming up. See you soon!